There's a lot that goes into the process of creating a comic, and by the time you get everything drawn and ready to go, you get to your cover design, a lot of people don't put much thought into their logo design. It's super important, so today I'm going to peel back the curtain and give you a glimpse at, how I approach logo designs for comics. Greetings everyone, welcome to the underground layer where we bring our creations to life. I'm Scott with Serkworks Art Labs. I'm a professional illustrator, designer, and mad creator. One of the things I create are comics, and I've been hard at work on my own comic. Actually, it's been wrapped up for a little bit, but I'm ramping up for a Kickstarter for my comic book, Young and the Dead. It is a kids versus zombie adventure story in the vein of Goonies and Monster Squad and, E.T., Explorers, all those great action adventure movies starring kids in the 80s. This is sort of a preview of the current issue, which I will be launching along with all the other issues. So in addition to these covers that I'm designing, I've had this logo design for a while, and I'm happy with this logo and everything. But one of the things I wanted to do with this particular Kickstarter launch is I wanted to offer some variant covers. Now, the first of which was done by my friend Joshua Kimball, who basically designed the whole thing. I was I was thinking when I'm looking for artists, I'm just hiring them to do the actual artwork, not necessarily all the design. I could figure I could do that myself, but Josh did the whole thing, and he designed his own logo, and it was really cool, so I liked it. And I thought, well, with these different variant covers, because I've got 5 issues, I want to do 5 separate variant covers, all by different artists, and I want them to look different. I want them to be kind of in a world of their own, because it's their art, and I want to create separate logos to represent each individual cover. So that's what I set out to do. So I've been designing, it's kind of fun because I've lived with this logo and I do like it, but I thought to myself, well, what else can I do? What other kind of logo designs can I do? And I am, and like I mentioned in the beginning, in addition to being an illustrator, I'm also a graphic designer. Not every comic book artist has strength in that area, but I wanted to give you a few tips and maybe kind of help you along as far as how I go about approaching a logo design. It's not going to be necessarily every single step of the process, but I think enough to at least encourage you to explore on your own and hopefully come up with a really cool logo design for your own project. But like I said, as far as the Kickstarter, I'm going to be launching it in a couple weeks as I'm posting this. Right now, I am going to leave a link. It's like a preview link. You can go and you can get, basically you go click on that link and sign up, and you'll get notified when that Kickstarter goes live, so you'll be one of the first, because I'm going to have some limited edition, tiers and things like that will, they're probably going to sell out. So if those are something you want to be notified about, definitely go and click on that so you will be notified when the Kickstarter goes live, and I'll be talking about it and everything. But like I said, really, it's been fun designing these logos, so I want to get into that. I want to show you, again, how I approach logo designs for comics. So let's get to that. All right, so logo design for comics. I talked a little bit about this on my newsletter, and if you aren't subscribed to my newsletter, you can go to serkworks.com. You get the Comic Maker Starter Kit with that, which is a suite of tools for making comics. And then I try to give advice and inspiration and all that on my newsletter as well. But I did talk a little bit about this process on the newsletter, but because of the confounds of that newsletter, I couldn't go as deep, and sometimes it's a little hard to read stuff and understand it as far as the process. So briefly, I'm going to kind of go over some of that again here in the video, and hopefully it will make more sense. So right now I am in Adobe Illustrator. If you don't have the Adobe suite, I understand it's a bit of a, it's not inexpensive. So some other options are, I think Inkscape is similar to Adobe Illustrator. I believe that's free. I think you can get that online. I've never used it, but I think it's similar to Adobe Illustrator. Also, Affinity Designer, it's not a subscription based, it's like a one-time fee. It's a great program, but what you're looking for is a vector program. You don't want to use like a Photoshop or even like Procreate or something like that that's a vector program or app to design your logos, because I'll show you. And if you don't know the difference, so basically, let me show you. So this is my logo. This was done in Illustrator, all right? Now, here is Photoshop, which is a raster program, which is the one you don't want to design logos in. It's, you know, I use Photoshop for coloring. I use it, some people use it for drawing and things like that. But what happens with a raster file is it's equivalent to like a photograph, okay? So, you know, when you zoom in on a photograph, oh, I'm zooming there, zoom in, it starts to get pixelated. So if you wanted to stretch out your logo, because you never know when you design a logo what the, you know, the usage is going to be. If somebody may want to put it on a billboard or something like that, and you know, you can't have this fuzzy, you know, image. So, or maybe somebody wants to cut vinyl, like a vinyl graphic or something like that. It just does. I mean, it doesn't work with like a raster, like a Photoshop file. So Photoshop's similar to like a photograph. All right. Now, Illustrator is a little different in that it's more like, I guess you could equate it to like a font. You know, if you zoom in on a font, if you want to make your font bigger, it's not going to get fuzzy. It's just going to be crisp and clear because it's all made up of mathematical equations. So let me show you the kind of the same thing here. So I'm going to zoom in on this logo done in Illustrator, and you can see it doesn't matter how big I get, it's super crisp, all right? So that's the reason why, and trust me, if you design your logo, if you're sending it out to somebody, I know doing graphic design for a living, anytime somebody sends me a logo that is not a vector-based logo, like an AI file or a SVG file or something like that, I usually, a lot of times I have to end up redrawing it because I just can't do much with it. So it's really good. Now a program like Illustrator, it's if you've never used it before, it's a little, you know, contrary to how you're used to working. It's not like, despite the name Illustrator, it's not just like drawing. You're using, you know, curves and things to build your shapes and everything. So it may take a little getting used to, but if you can learn it, it's going to serve you very well. So anyway, let me go back to, I've got this, this is what I start off with. When I'm starting off, I open an Illustrator file, a blank file, and then I am just going to type in the name of whatever it is, of my comic. So my comic, Young and the Dead, this is sort of just a standard font. And then where I go from there is I just want to explore. I want to look at all the fonts on my system, go through them, and figure out what kind of feel am I going for. For this, it's a horror comic. So I want something maybe a little, you know, distressed, something, you know, kind of maybe a little edgy. Whereas if I'm doing like a sci-fi, I want it to be slick. You know, if I'm doing like a super fun like Disney-esque comic, I want it to be fun and bubbly or whatever. So keep that in mind when you're looking through your fonts. And then sometimes, and what we're going to find out as we go on, I'm going to alter some of these as well. So where I might pick something that may look sort of like soft and round, I can harden it up. And so, because really what I don't want to do is I don't want to use just a straight font just the way it is. I want, by the time I'm done with it, I want you to not know where I started with that font. I want it to be totally original. That way, you know, you do have something original, and no one's going to just copy it or use the same font for their comic. So anyway, so what I do, like I said, I just start with the name. This is a font. This is Biba's New. And that might be a starting point, you know, but what I'll do is I'll just go through, and like I said, I can go through here, right? If you go up right here where it says character, it gives you a little preview, and I can go through that, but there's another way that I prefer to work that gives you a little better idea of different fonts on your system. So it's online. There is a pro account that you can pay for, but I just use the free account, and it's done what I want. It's called Wordmark, and it's .it. So if you search wordmark.it, you'll find this program. I'm just going to type in the name of my comic. Okay, Young and the Dead. So now what I do is I just push start on my keyboard, and what this does is once you, or maybe I have to click that. Okay, so this is going to find all the fonts on your system, and it's just going to display them like this and tell you what each one is, and it's a little better preview. So I tend to use this, and as you can see, like I said, if you want to do like a space age, you know, like a sci-fi thing, maybe you start with something like this, like these digital letters. But then I'll just go through and I'll find the ones I like, and if I find something that may work, then I will go back and find it on my system. So just to speed things up a little bit, I've already found some of the fonts that I like. Let's see here. Let me pull these over here so we can work with them. So these are the ones that I thought might work okay for what I'm trying to do with Young and the Dead. But still, if I was just to use these the way they were, I wouldn't be that happy with them. So let me find one more font here. This is one I know I kind of like. It's called Palooka. So I'm going to go up here. Palooka BB, which stands for Blambot. If you're not familiar with Blambots, they make great fonts. So I like this. I like this font. It's kind of cool. But it is sort of soft. So it's not. I want to make it a little more jagged and a little more edgy. So once I decide sort of where I want to start, let me move these over here. So I've got this font, all right, and I've already designed this logo, so I know where I'm going. So it might, if you're doing this from scratch, it's going to be a lot more experimentation. But now what I'm going to do, I've got this selected. So right now, if I want, I can change. If I want to change the letters, I just retype or whatever. So I want to save a copy of this just in case I have to go back and edit it. And also because sometimes after this next step, which is going to convert this to artwork, which means I won't be able to edit it, I won't be able to retype and change the letters around. I want to keep this just so, for one, because sometimes once you do that, there's no evidence of what font this is. It won't say Palooka BB, and I'll be like, down the road, I'm like, oh, what font did I use for that? And I forget. So I always want to keep a copy of it right here so I can just select it and get all the information up here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select just this. Why is it selecting everything? I don't know. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I am going to go to Object and where is it? Expand Appearance. No, that didn't work. Let me try again. Expand. Okay. Now see how it changed there? So now what's happened is this is just artwork. Let me ungroup this. Go to ungroup. Okay, so we can move this out of the way. So now I've got my font. So what I can do now, this is artwork. If you look, it's no longer you can't retype it or anything like that. So I've got my font, and then I am going to let's see. I'm gonna ungroup it. I'm gonna go ungroup. And what that's going to do is that's going to give me individual letters. So now I can kind of play around. I can select maybe this, and I can select this. I can make it bigger. You want to be careful not to stretch things out so much. A lot of people just stretch stuff out. But what happens is there's certain widths. So if you start stretching things, whereas the sides of your letters will be the correct width, these will start to get longer, and you want, a lot of times you want it to be like uniform. So typically I don't like to stretch things out, but you can make it bigger or whatever. And then sometimes I'll move things around. Maybe I want the letters to be a little more haphazard. But let me just kind of fast forward and show you what I'm going for here. Okay, so that's a starting point. That's using just the Palooka font the way it is. And this is what I want to end up with, all right? So this is just blue line just to give us an idea, all right? So believe it or not, this here started with this. And you can see how, again, I kind of moved some of these letters around, made these smaller, and I've got it like that. And then in order to get to this point, so what I end up doing is there's a number of things that I like to do to make fonts a little more original. So sometimes what I'll do is if you've got, like, say, a crossbar. Let me take this E. You've got this crossbar. I'm just going to go ahead. Now this artwork, I can kind of erase this. Get rid of that. And then maybe I want to have it angled up a little bit. like that. And it's important to have consistency. Now, I'm just doing this real quick. I would do it a little better. But you could have it angled. Maybe you can move it down or whatever. That's one thing you can do. Another thing is you can see here how I've extended some of the, off to the side. I go over here. Just add these little, I'm just basically drawing on here. And again, if you haven't worked with Illustrator, it's a little different. It's just not like drawing. You're basically, you've got a pen tool and you're creating these curves. But you can kind of draw like you normally would. If I go here, there's a blob brush. It's right where the brush is. You go down to blob brush, and this actually will allow me. Here, let me find a font here. What's a good one? Yes, let me find. A letter. So this N. So if I go to my blob brush, I can go ahead and I can actually draw. If that's easier for you than using your curves. It's probably not going to be as accurate, but with this logo, since it's going to be a little, it's going to be chipped away, as you can see here, you can actually use this. And what happens is if you're using the same color as the font or the artwork that you created, it'll just merge it, so it'll just create an all new shape. So things like that are what I'm looking for. How can I make this different? You can see here, let me show you a couple of fonts here. Let me move these up real quick. Move those out of the way. And this, if you're on my newsletter, you already saw this, but I'm just going to kind of zoom in here. So you can see these are two of the fonts. So it started here again, and these are all the places where I made changes. So I extended this Y out here. I made this O a little more square. These little notches in here, if you can see these little notches, I drew those in. So I'm just trying to find different ways that I can make this letter original, so that when somebody looks at it, they're not going to say, "Oh, you just used Palooka." All right. So those are, and likewise on this logo, I forget what logo this was. I think this is probably another Blambot font that I used. But I stacked it. And then I used a different font for here. You don't want to use too many different fonts. I would stick to 2 maybe. You don't want to go crazy and use a bunch of different fonts. But then I stacked it, and then again, same thing. I extended like the G out here, extended the Y. So there's all kinds of things you can do, and you want to be consistent. Like if you extend one letter, you don't have to extend them all. But you don't probably want that to be the only one. You say, well, if I extend this G out here, maybe I can extend the N. And just likewise. So there's all kinds of different things you can do. You can take a font, and if it's got straight corners, you can round the corners. You can cut the corners away. You can put little notches, like let's see, if I take a font, what's a good font? I don't know. Let's see. Okay, like this one. Simple things like this. So if I got here, let me move these things away from the artboard. Oops. Gotta select the whole thing, move that away from the artboard. Okay, so let me go ahead and make this larger. Let me convert this, expand. Now it's artwork. Let me ungroup. Okay, so if I want to start with something like this, if I want to see how this angle is here, that's something that makes this particular font unique. But typically an N, that angle could be in the middle, or we could take that angle and we can drop it down to the bottom. But if you're going to drop it down to the bottom here, like for instance, this crossbar and this A and this crossbar and this H, if you've got one crossbar, you decide you want your crossbar up here instead of down here, then you want to do the same with the A. You want to keep some consistency. So just some things to think about. But for instance, if I wanted to do something a little original with this font, just some simple fix, like I'm just going to draw a little triangle here, and I use the Pathfinder tool a lot. So when I got my triangle, I'm going to select this letter, and then I'm going to go, this is the Pathfinder tool, all right? And there's different options. This one's just going to cut away this top thing that I just drew. So just took a little notch out of that. And then I can go and do the same thing on the O. Instead of rounded corners, I can cut a notch out of that O or this U. And then, and you do that, and it's going to create an original font. So just those are some of the things that you can think about just to make your just standard lettering a little more, original. So back to this logo. I'll pull this back here again. And you can see, so I've got this all kind of I've got the letters all stretched the way I like them and everything. Once I get to that point, you can see how it's kind of chipped away. Now, I'm not exactly sure. There's a couple different techniques you can do. You can go in with your eraser tool, now that's artwork, and you can kind of just chip things away like that. That might have been the way I did it, I don't remember. But go through here, you can add, you can, instead of subtracting, you can go with your, you know, your tool, and you can add to it, your pen tool. But basically, I just took some time. I started chipping away at the logo and everything till eventually, you know, I've got, let me convert this to black so you can see it. That's the logo. That's one of the logos that I came up with. And then you can, you know, once you get your basic logo down, you can do something. You can put like, you know, you can do like a drop shadow. And what you do for that is you just copy this. Now I want to make sure if these are separate, I want to group these together. Object, group. All right. And then I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to put this on top here. I may want to make a copy of both of these in case I mess up. And I think you have to do, actually I think you have to, because these are separate, I think I have to break this apart. So I'm going to go ungroup. I shouldn't have grouped it. And then I think, ungroup? Is it ungroup? Yeah. So then I'm going to go to my Pathfinder just like I did before. Oh, where did it go? And I'm going to just subtract that. And now I've got this shape. And then if I want, I can take this letter, because I made a copy, or whatever copy I made, take that. I can just switch from fill. There's this right here. This is your outline and fill. I'm going to switch. Oh, didn't get it. Why isn't that working? Okay, yeah. So now I've got this outline. So I can just drop that in there. And then I've got a nice little outline letter, and I just repeat that process with the whole thing. Now this is still editable. I want to convert this. Like right now, if I wanted to, I could go in with, this is the direct selection tool, this white arrow. If I wanted to change things around, I could do that. I don't want to do that, and I don't want to get messed up. So once I got it where I like, I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to go to expand, click OK, and now that is, you know, now it's just artwork again. It's not really that editable. And then, like I said, I just repeat the whole thing, and then I can get, you know, something like this with a drop shadow or whatever. So I know I kind of went through some of this fast, and if you're not used to using Illustrator, it may be a little bit of a challenge, but I just want to give you a starting point, just show you how I do this. So, you know, always don't be afraid, you know, I'll look up videos and maybe somebody will give you a quick rundown and just explore further. It's like, oh, how did he do this? Go look online, and there's tons of tutorials everywhere on how to use Illustrator and how to do some of these techniques. But generally, I just want to show you, oh, I start with just a font, and then I find similar fonts to what the style I'm looking for. Then I break them apart, then I manipulate them. But that's basically it. So hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully it'll help you create better logos for your comic, because you know, when I'm out there looking at comics, sometimes I see comics with great artwork and the logos not so great. So we want to have great logos. We want the logos to match that great artwork, and that's sort of a starting point on how you can achieve that. So again, thanks. Hopefully that was helpful. All right, so there you have it. That's my approach to creating logos for comics, and you can apply this to pretty much anything. It doesn't have to just be comics, but we talk a lot about comics on this channel. And again, my Kickstarter will be launching in a couple of weeks. I'm gonna have all kinds of cool tiers. These variant covers are gonna be awesome from some awesome artists. So if you want to be notified when that's gonna happen, just go and click on that link, and you will just sign up for that. It's, you know, it's like a sort of a preview link, so you'll be one of the first to know when I launch that, and I'll leave a link to that in the description. But let me know, do you guys struggle with logo designs for your comics? Is that something maybe you hire somebody else to do? Do you tackle it yourself? Are you happy with the logo designs you come up with? Let me know in the comments section, and I will talk to you later. That is all. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw and you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Also, you can follow me at Serkworks on social media, and now you can support the work that I do on Patreon. Do you like making comics? Then go to Serkworks.com and pick up the Comic Maker Starter Kit. It's packed full of fonts, brushes, templates, and more. And best of all, it's totally free.